So today I'm coming at you from my floor because I've decorated for Christmas and I wanted to show off my tree, and it's very short, so I could not have gotten this in the video any other way. But yeah, I got my tree, I got a peppermint candle, I got a Christmas jumper, I am ready. But today we're not doing Christmassy, today we're doing spooky. So this video is going to be a vlog for the read-along that happened just this week for the book that came in the last FairyLoot box. The theme of that box was Wicked Hearts. It was their kind of spooky box for October, and in that we got this beautiful copy of Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. Later in another video I will be reviewing this more in my traditional style of touching on some of the delicate points and then just giving my overall opinion, but keeping the whole thing spoiler free. This is not what that's going to be like. This is going to have spoilers. So in case you haven't done it before, when FairyLoot hosts a read-along for their book, each day you're supposed to read a certain set of chapters, and then on the blog post you have free reign to talk about any and everything that happened within those chapters. So it's a spoiler safe zone. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to be doing here. Each day I will read that assigned section of the book and then film talking about it for a little bit, and then string them all together and post them on Friday. I'll make sure to put little cards too in between each section, so if you're maybe a little bit into the book but haven't finished it yet, you don't stumble upon a section that you haven't gotten to. So for the first day, we're supposed to read chapters 1 through 9, and I had actually started this book a little bit early. There was a little bit of lag between me finishing my last book and getting in my new shipment of books, so this was the only one I had available, so I went ahead and did a little bit of reading. But I was very glad to find out when they finally posted the reading schedule that I had not read ahead any, that the first day is 1 to 9 and I was in the middle of chapter 8. So very close, but still within the acceptable window. I mean, the book has a really strong start. The first chapter is told from the point of view of the grandma, and she's talking a lot about how she's worried for the kids, and it's like a dark and spooky night, and she seems honestly very scared that one of those spooky things that go bump in the night are gonna come and get them. And without reading anything else in the book, I was already nervous and scared for these small children. So Maniscalco's writing is really good. She sets an atmosphere very well. The other big thing that happened in the adventure beginning is I kind of expected, with a pair of magical twins that, you know, one of them is a bit mischievous and likes to hear about all the dark arts and the demons and stuff like that. And then the other one seems very sweet and innocent. She just wants to read and cook and that kind of stuff. And so I really assumed that something would happen to the sweet and innocent one, and that the kind of more mischievous one would have to go after her or whatever. But no, not only does it not happen that way, and it's the mischievous one who gets in trouble and the innocent one that has to avenge her, but she doesn't get kidnapped or stolen away, or she just straight up dies. That was pretty surprising, but I guess also Maniscalco doesn't seem to pull any punches. She's like, no, this is what would happen if you messed around with black magic or demons and stuff like that. You probably wouldn't be held for ransom somewhere or kidnapped or whatever. You'd just be killed. They're not interested in that stuff. You'd just be murdered. So yeah, that's what's going on. And it is kind of interesting though to see the good twin, the sweet innocent twin, Amelia, kind of turn darker, because she has reason to suspect that that's what her sister was dabbling in, and that's why she ended up dead. At this point, her Victoria's diary is sealed shut with some kind of magic, and Amelia can't open it. So that's kind of what's led her down the path of, oh, I need to look into dark magic, because if it wasn't dark magic, I would know the counterspell, or one of my counterspells would have worked, but they haven't. So she's looking down this path of darkness. She finds out that she kind of needs to summon a demon to go further. She decides, what do I have to lose? And so she does that. And it was really hard to put down the book because 9 ends on a cliffhanger that the demon that she summons is the guy that she saw with her sister's dead body. And that made me really want to read more, because I'm sure he explains himself, or things are not as they seem, or maybe he's just going to try and trick her into thinking that. But I wanted to know what he had to say for himself. but I guess I'll find out tomorrow. Hey there, friends. So for today's reading, we read up to 19. So this is the end of 19 and the start of chapter 20. And they did a really good job of ending on another cliffhanger. Amelia's grandmother gets attacked, and it seems like she's gonna make it, which is good. But her amulet gets stolen, which we found out is one of the horns of hell, which we found out locks demons in hell. There was a lot of world building and fact-finding in these particular chapters. Amelia goes from not really believing in the princes of hell, or not believing that they could get out and be a threat, to meeting 3 of them. So she learns a lot about her world in these chapters. I really like that when she summons Wrath and she's asking him a lot of questions. Yes, of course, there's the, like, I don't trust you, but I also don't have a choice. But then she thinks about it and she's like, well, I do have some other choices. So she leaves him there to go on her own fact-finding mission, and that's when she bumps into the 2 other demons. One she bumps into, the other one she seeks out with purpose through that, and she finally cracks her sister's diary, and she talks to her grandmother about everything that's going on. So I really like that she went through so much extra effort to find information from other sources, as opposed to just listening to what Wrath had to say with like a bunch of doubt and like taking what he said with a grain of salt. She actually went through the effort to find other things. That way she can believe these things with more conviction, I guess, or like really get to the bottom of what's going on. So that was really nice to see, just in general. And I feel like that's maybe another nice aspect of Maniscalco's writing, is that Amelia's like that in this book. I forget her name, but the girl in Stalking Jack the Ripper and the subsequent books, she's really good at that too. She could just stop to listen to like the police or her father or her uncle, but she listens to them. She takes it into consideration, but then she goes on her own fact-finding mission. So I like that that's kind of a through line with Maniscalco and her main characters. That always makes reading her writing a joy. But those are my thoughts on these chapters, so I will check in with you again tomorrow. Bye! Hey there, friends! So it's Wednesday, and that means it's the 3rd day of Kingdom of the Wicked Read Along. Today we ended at the end of chapter 28, so this is the beginning of chapter 29. I gotta say, I think I liked yesterday's reading more than today's reading. Today's section opened with Amelia going down to like these catacombs under the monastery to get her sister's amulet, but it felt very reminiscent of like Harry Potter and his scene with the basilisk, and I just found myself thinking of that the whole time, so I was a little distracted. But she gets her prize, she gets the amulet, and she nearly escapes, but like her and the basilisk almost like, well, it's not even a basilisk, they have another name, it's like a viperade. I bet that's the terribly wrong way to pronounce it, but that's what I'm gonna say. Pops his eye and goes through to his brain, super cool, but he also got a fang in her and his venom started spreading, but Wrath comes to save her. And I was really confused by that because he specifically said that he wouldn't. I don't know if he was just trying to dissuade her from going in the first place, but always intended to rescue her, or if he didn't think he'd be able to. He also says something while he's like saving her and curing her antidote, like, I hope you live to hate me for this. So that makes me think that he like already likes her or knows something about her that like she doesn't even know. Maybe she's like a piece on the board for some kind of political intrigue, machinations, whatever. But I thought that was kind of interesting and weird. I hope it pans out to be something a little more intriguing than just he already likes her. But I mean, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either. But yeah, then they just kind of pal around together. They plan to go visit the next bride-to-be, which Wrath knows because Pride is telling him. How many brides does Pride have lined up? That last one wasn't quite as much of a rhyme, but whatever. Is it like The Bachelor? Is he courting all these women at the same time? From the deceitful way that Wrath says that he won't force anybody to marry Pride, it seems like these ladies are still like choosing it. Maybe they're being strong-armed by some other person, just not Wrath, but it seems like they're choosing it willingly. It seems like Victoria chose it willingly. So I feel like that means that there's something bigger going on in the story. They find that she's dead, and they find that the messenger who's been telling Wrath where the next bride is has also been selling his information to somebody else. So that's where this section ends, is they confront him to figure out what's going on. He doesn't even know who he's giving it to, but he gives them the same information they got that guy. So I would imagine the next step in the plot then is finding him, stopping him, and confronting him. But I kind of hope that he's not the murderer, that he's just an agent for the murderer, because that would be kind of fast. I mean, we're not that close to the end, so even if he is the murderer, maybe he gets away. I like what I saw somebody else say in the readathon for yesterday, that perhaps it's a witch that's killing these other witches, because that would make sense. If a witch has to marry Pride so that they can get back out and be back in the world, it would make sense that if another witch knew that she would want to kill other witches, but she would feel like it's her duty to keep our world safe by keeping them locked away. Which is really interesting. Or maybe it's like Hot Fuzz and it is several people who are doing the murdering, not just one, which would really fit with my theory that it's Antonio, essentially the monk guy. They use a bunch of Spanish throughout the book, which is cool, and I can get it because of the Latin roots and my little bit of Spanish knowledge, but it makes it really hard to pronounce when I want to talk about the book later. So I'm just gonna call him a monk. Her buddy, who's in the church, whose name is Antonio, shows up again, and at first I thought, okay, just a crush to show that, like, you know, she's not the most PG. She has had romantic thoughts before about somebody that's 3D, not just her romance novels that she reads. But he shows up again because they're in the church, and so he comes in and he's talking to them for a minute, and I had the thought, I was like, oh, what if he did it? Sometimes it's who seems the least likely, which is what I'm hoping for in this book too, because he's an upstanding member of the church. Why would he be killing anybody? And of course, why would he know about witches and demons and magic and stuff like that? But the church has always been against stuff like that, so that would make sense that perhaps they don't outwardly say or do any of those things or associate with witch hunters, but they also are. That's my theory, at least for right now. That's my new theory, but I'm also not fully giving up my old theory that even Amelia has too, that it is probably one of the other brothers that want to be the king of hell instead of Pride or Prince. That maybe even still call him the prince, but I kind of feel like this section gave us more questions than answers, but it is nice to finally see Amelia and Wrath working together, because I kind of knew that that's what was going to happen eventually anyway. So now they're actually doing it. Maybe we'll get closer to finding the culprit and figuring out what happened. So I'm looking forward to updating you on that tomorrow. Hey guys, so it's day 4 of the readathon, and that means that tomorrow I get to finish the book. So here's where we ended. So this is what I get to read tomorrow. I think it's about this much that I read today. So I'll keep this pretty short, kind of like yesterday's read. I don't feel like we moved along that much in solving the mystery and figuring out what's going on with hell / the murders. But these few chapters stick to what I've seen being a pattern throughout this whole book, where somebody tells Amelia, don't go do this thing, it's not safe. And she goes, hey, wait a minute, I'm gonna go do this thing because I need answers. So in this section, we see that happen twice. The first thing she does doesn't really tie into that exactly, I guess. She finds out that the spell that she used to summon Wrath is actually more akin to like a wedding vow, so they're like kind of engaged. So she gets upset and runs away. But anyway, so they have that conversation. They go back to his castle palace thing that he's commandeered for his time in the human realm. And Amelia oversleeps, so Wrath's able to get away without a whole conversation of, no, you shouldn't come, blah, 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 all that. But she wakes up and she decides, hey, wait a minute, I want to do investigating. I want to be there. I'm going to go try and find him. So she leaves, and that's when she stumbles upon Lust. There's some more fan service with her being at first enthralled with Lust, and then Wrath shows up, so then we get to see lots of thoughts about him. And then Lust wrings all the joy out of her at all. We have like a recovery scene of her for like 2 weeks, maybe a month. And so Wrath gets to be a little sweet and doty on her, so a little more fan service, just in a different way. And then he helps her out with like a kind of rejuvenation spell bath thing, which sounds nice. The food's been okay, but that was the part that I was like, oh, maybe I need to do this for myself. But since she is just recently recovered, / maybe not even fully recovered yet, Wrath just leaves to go do the next round of investigation on his own, doesn't really ask her to come with. And then again, she decides, hey, wait a minute, I want to be there. So she either tries to find him or just goes out on her own investigation. She stumbles upon Claudia outside the monastery, and Claudia's kind of babbling this semi-nonsense, which I'm sure will make more sense at the end of the book. But the only bit of sense I could glean from it at all is that I think Wrath is a bigger player in it than he's seemed so far. So far, at least to me, he seemed like more of an agent of Pride. He's helping him out with his tasks. He's more than an errand boy, but he's still very much aligned with Pride. Whereas after Claudia's bit of babbling, it seems like Wrath has his own goals he's working towards, is working in his own interests, stuff like that. I still don't think he's behind the murders, but I think he's a bigger part of this whole curse slash like ruling hell kind of thing. And then right after Amelia leaves Claudia, she's intercepted by a messenger for Envy and kind of strong-armed into coming to meet with him. And that's where we end this section. In my opinion, I kind of feel like that's a red herring, her meeting with Envy. I don't think he's the mastermind behind the whole thing. But I'm looking forward to telling you guys about that tomorrow. Bye for now. Hey there friends, so it's the last day of the Kingdom of the Wicked read-along, which means I got to finish the book today. And I gotta say, I was kind of disappointed. I was super looking forward to this book, and because I got such a beautiful copy, I feel like that added to my hype. I don't feel like this book ends at a good stopping point. I think my main complaint about the ending of the book is that the whole book we are hyping up not only this murder mystery, who's killing witches, but also what's going on with these princes of hell and the gates of hell breaking and the horns of Hades. Everything just keeps snowballing. At first, it's just these murders, which are terrible, but then it's like all these larger machinations of princes of hell. And I feel like at the end of the book, what I felt like, and what I think she felt like too, is that if only we can find out which prince of hell is working against Pride, we will find out who is causing these murders. Either they're doing it or they have like an agent in their like employ or in their control that they're sending to do it. The goal is to interfere with Pride and him trying to break his curse. And so with the book concluding with the only real achievement being finding the murderer and stopping him, it just didn't feel that substantial. I was a little pleased because I was right and the murderer isn't Antonio, but me and Amelia were also right that the murderer was murdering on the behalf of Prince of Hell. And I gotta say I was a little surprised and not surprised, because Maniscalco seems to love to either throw out red herrings or tell you why it absolutely couldn't be this person that it totally ends up being. But I felt like Envy was always suspicious, and it turns out he is. He's the one that told Antonio who to kill and the reason for the murders. Even though Antonio stopped, Envy isn't. He's still running around, he's still doing whatever. And I think what would have made this a little more satisfying is if everything else had happened the way that it's written already, but Amelia went to hell with a clearer intention, a clearer plan. Like, I don't even need to be explained it, just her going, yes, well, I'm gonna get there and they're gonna be sorry, or, you know, I've got a plan, something. But the more I read this book, the more I was reminded of Jude I think the series is called Folk of Air, but it's Cruel Prince, Wicked King, and Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. And I was really reminded of Jude because it seems like both her and Amelia are like, hey, I'm at a disadvantage, but I'm gonna learn as much as I can, and I'm gonna figure out how to get power, how to not be at a disadvantage, how to fight this stuff, even though just by default, I am less experienced, less powerful, whatever. But with Jude, it felt like she always had a plan, she had clear intent, she was working very hard to achieve a goal. With Amelia, it just kind of feels like things happen to her. Like, she's kind of good at investigating, but so far I don't feel convinced that she's a clever strategist and good at plotting. I got really excited in her little interaction with Greed, where he says that she can ask him one question, and she has some statements that prompt him to explain things. But she points out that none of them were questions yet until the last one that she just asked. And he's like, oh, clever. And I was like, oh, good. We'll have a good, clever main character. I love a good, clever, plotting character. And Maniscalco is great at writing those. I really thought that Amelia would be plotting more, but I just didn't really feel like I was satisfied in that aspect of the storytelling slash like her as a character. But I still like her. She's a sweet gal. It's kind of inspiring to see her kind of growing a backbone and being more independent and being fierce and all of that. So that's lovely. I am still gonna pick up the next one. I'm just gonna meet her my expectations. I think I was already a little over expectant of this book, but then getting such a pretty copy, I got a little more excited still. So I think I'll just keep those things in mind when I read the second one, but I have faith in Manscalco. She's a good writer, and I really like both Wrath and Amelia, so I feel like I will be entertained in the next book with what they get up to in hell. Now they're on his turf. But I just feel like the book hyped up the ending more, but not enough happened for me to feel satisfied. So that's my ending thoughts on Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. I will do a review in my more typical style. I'll have a written review that I'll post on my Squarespace blog. And since I got this book in FairyLoot, I'll do a video review that I'll post on my YouTube channel. And I'll have that up next week if I don't get my FairyLoot box before then. But I just want to thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.